Peace, y'all. So I didn't come here to take up a lot of your time, but I did come here to finish out a thought from an earlier conversation at the meeting at the mosque. There's a very, very interesting subject that was talked about, and the subject of how can we close the gap with our children came up. First of all, I'd like to say welcome to anybody that came here to tune in to this little small, little, meeting between me and my people, my Sears gang, y'all. What it do, what it do, what it do. And I found it very, very, very intriguing, what a brother said. It was very profound. He made a comment and said, what's natural to us has been overlooked so that we can maintain the image of what's normal to us. I thought that was extremely profound. I'm clearing out the energy. This is to repel any negative energy. If you're not supposed to be here, please exit. If you have no true interest in what I have to say, please exit. All right. This is also to cleanse the space for the message to come across the way it's supposed to. There's a saying that people that cannot go places or be around other people and be themselves, you shouldn't be there. I agree with that. It's so many things that this world wants us to conform to, whether we're children or adults. And I must say, and my own experience is now when I speak, I'm speaking from my perspective. I'm not trying to speak for you. I'm not trying to speak for 20,000 other people. I'm only speaking from my perspective and my experiences. So let me get that clear. I'm not trying to change nobody's mind or none of that. I'm just here to provoke thought. Different perspective. That's it. In my experiences as a child and an adult, people want you to conform to what makes them feel comfortable while they're in a presence. We're in a presence, a group setting, a school, a religious setting, friendship setting, a household. Your parents will tell you, well, while you in my house, you're going to live by my rules. We all heard that one, and to a degree, that's real. Everything has boundaries. Everything has its, standard and its bar set to whether we like it or not. And if we don't fit into that or don't feel like we can, abide by that, we shouldn't be in that particular setting. But as far as our own personal social statuses, in relationships, sometimes that applies there too. And sometimes it can take you out of your natural self, your genuine self. And we have to think about our children. Especially in our culture, we were not taught to give them their own voices. We weren't taught to give them a place where they could be comfortable expressing their genuine selves. So you know what they'll do when we ask them questions? How do they feel about this? They'll lie to us. Not because they're being, demeaning or facetious. It's because they're afraid to tell us how they really feel. And the thing that hit me the most when the brother said what he said about, we've been taught to overlook what's natural, to accept what's supposed to be normal. What's supposed to be normal ain't always natural. So I wanted to come here and continue my thought, because when you talk about closing the gap between us and children, you think about their belief systems, our belief systems. Our concept of God was given to us completely different. We was taught that a man was swallowed by a fish for 3 days. We was taught that God flooded the whole world and it was only 8 people saved, and him and his, sons and their wives, they built this big old boat the size of a football field, and they told people, if you don't get on this boat, Daddy, you're going to die, you're going to drown, because God's going to make it rain for 40 days and 40 nights. And we grew up believing that this Caucasian man named Jesus came, to deliver us from our sin. We grew up believing this stuff. That was real to us, that these two Caucasian people, Adam and Eve, is the people who started the whole planet. We grew up believing this stuff, learning this stuff, and being indoctrinated in this stuff. And over the years, we were constantly indoctrinated from childhood, to adolescence, to young adulthood, to adulthood, and so forth. And then you get older, and then you start realizing that these were never your true feelings and thoughts and beliefs, that now you're in a place where you're like, wait a minute, this ain't making no sense, and I'm not resonating with this no more. But it took you 30, 35, 40 years to get to that place. Whereas now we're looking at how our children possibly could be feeling and thinking. We're thinking like that because we just know we want them to believe in something. But you got to think about it. When you're born, this goes for all of us. When we're born, we have no idea or what concept and nothing. We don't know nothing about a God, a devil, none of that, right? When we're born, all we know is when we want some attention or we need something, we cry. And we look for that person that we're the most connected to, which is our mother. That's our God when we're born. We look for our fathers, or we look for those vibrations that we remember while we were in the womb that we became familiar with. We look for that. But we don't look for nothing like we look for that mother. We know our mamas. We smell that milk. That's what we attach to and look for. You understand what I'm saying? So none of us were born knowing anything or having any concept or idea about what God is and all the stuff that we're taught and indoctrinated with and fed along the way of our experience here in this physical realm. So I'm saying that to say this: when we become adults, we become so ingrained in this stuff that we teach it to our children. And we never stop to ask them how they feel about what we're teaching them. Do they even believe it? And 9 times out of 10, we become so strong in the things that we believe, the things that we've experienced along the way, that we forget that there's still an inner child in us too. That we bury that because we become so ingrained and entrenched in all of the things that's going on in our society, in our world, things that change us, things that made us grow, things that made us, outgrow a lot of things. So we start forgetting that that child in us is still there, but we don't connect with it anymore because life took us from that. Now we battling these other forces. So we forget about that child in us. But when we have our own children, we keep forgetting that those children still need to be able to relate to us. A lot of times we trade that and start to replace it to what we think is supposed to be what's normal. And this is what was so profound to me about what the brother Muhammad said at the mosque. I mean, he said so much heavy stuff, it was just like, whoa, you know what I'm saying? It was nothing but wise words coming from the portal of his throat chakra, but that is what stood out and stuck to me when he said, we take what's natural and overlook that and replace it to what we think is normal. And that right there is the reason why we lost connection with our youth. And in my own personal opinion and observation, today's youth, they don't have the same concept. They don't have the concept of what God is. So you can't go to a lot of them talking about, this Noah's Ark story. They ain't believing that. You can't go to them talking about this man in the sky and some savior on a cross. And then you show them a picture of what we used to seeing. And then they see some man that don't even look like them, knowing the history of our people in connection with different, you understand what I'm saying? With the different race theory stuff. They're not going for it. When I left the Jehovah's Witness religion a couple of years ago, my children finally came to me and said, Mom, we so glad you left. And I was like, y'all, I don't know why. They said, because we never believe it anyway. I was like, yo, what? And listen, y'all, let me tell you something. Every Wednesday we had Bible study, home Bible study every week. We would read the Watchtower together. We would watch biblical stories together. We would have conversations and powwows about it. And, they would be in the hall slouching in the chairs, dozing off. And I used to be in there looking, God, see you. You going to get in trouble. They weren't paying me no attention. I look back at it and we can laugh at it now. But back then, I wanted my children to have a zeal for God the way that I did, But when I started realizing that I was taught a bunch of gibberish, and this mystic God wasn't even, you understand what I'm saying? The concept was given to me as a youth. So I spent my life seeking that mysterious God that I could never find. I'm like, well, what am I doing wrong? Why they showing us all these flicks of all these people that look like they got it? And you know what I'm saying? They just live in this perfect life in paradise, and God and Jehovah doing all this for them, and we still sitting over here dealing with all this foolishness as a whole. Why is God letting these people kill us? Why God ain't doing nothing about that? And why every time we want to fight for our rights, this religion tell us, oh, just wait for Jehovah. Let God do it. The new system gonna do it. Put it in God's hands. But then when the government want to ban the Jehovah Witness religion and ban them from preaching, now they want us to write letters to the government. We can't fight for our rights as a people, but y'all can fight for the freedom of your religion. When I started seeing that, I was like, nah. Come on now. You can't make this make sense to me. Somebody's numbers is off, because this ain't adding up, son. I'm telling you, this don't sound right. Something ain't right about this picture. You understand? When I started using my critical thinking skills, that is when all these beliefs that I was believing, they were completely debunked. Because what was supposed to be normal wasn't equating to what was natural. And naturally, you can't do what you want to do to people. We have rights. So we can't fight for our rights. Why do y'all think y'all can fight? We can't fight for our civil rights as human beings, but y'all can fight for a religious right. That didn't make no sense to me. That might have been normal to them, but it wasn't natural for me. You see what I'm saying? So when we look at that, we have to think about our children. We're trying to get our children to conform to these old belief systems and concepts, and they're not resonating with that stuff anymore. We're trying to force them into these, religious mindset. A lot of them don't resonate with it. They just don't. Now, when you start talking to them about the laws of attraction, about them being in the gods and them going inside and finding that God power and connecting with higher sources, they seem to be able to connect to that. And then y'all got to remember, we are in the age of Aquarius. So those old religious beliefs that we were up under the hierarchy and all of that, controlling, systems that engineering that we came up in, we were operating out of a different energy. So our minds wasn't open as a majority at that time to be able to clearly see a lot of things. But when you look back at a lot of our forefathers and ancestors, they were trying to tell us even back then that it was a bunch of, it was a farce. That this government, not just the government was a farce, but their religions was a farce. Everything they was teaching us was a farce. All of it was hogwash. But we couldn't hear it. But then you got to think about where we come from as a people. We know the story. I ain't got to go through that. But when they were talking about the gap of our children, we got to think about all of those years and years of conditioning and indoctrination, and beating all this stuff into us. It became generational. Even today, New Year's. The new year, which the new year, we know we've been lied to about that too. The new year don't even start until the changing of the seasons, but we've been taught to celebrate the new year at the end of the winter. All that kind of stuff. So what happens at the end of the winter? When you go back into history, I talk about this in my book, 10 Ways to Insanity as well. A lot of our people were being stripped away from their families and sold. They had, what do I want to call it? They had it to where they had sales going on during that time for the so-called New Year, to where our ancestors would go to the churches and they were going there to pray that these business people, these Caucasians, wasn't going to take their families away from them. That's why they were in the church. praying that they wouldn't be the next to be sold and auctioned off away from their families. But today we still go to church on the so-called New Year because that's become a tradition in our culture. We think we go in there because what? We going to because we safe there? No, our ancestors were there because they were looking for this same God, the same mystery God, looking to the same Savior that our oppressors prayed to enslave us and make us what we were to them. They gave us that God, but we were in the churches praying, asking that God, asking that deity to keep our families together. That's why our people were in churches on the so-called New Year. That's why, but we still do it. So we can see that these things have been passed down to us traditionally. And all of this stuff that we're trying to feed our children now in the age of Aquarius, we're going to lose our youth if we keep trying to feed this stuff to them. We have to give them a safe space and a platform to where they can tell us how they feel, what their concepts of this higher power is to them. Find out if they even have a concept of a higher power. Find out why they don't feel like there's a higher power. We don't let them express themselves. We have to make a safe space for them to open up. We can't keep trying to force them to believe what we think is best for them when it comes down to their, you understand what I'm saying? Their own mindset. We have to teach them that it's okay for you to express your feelings, your concepts to me, and maybe I can give you a different perspective that you can think about. We don't give them that option. It's our way or the highway. And y'all, we know we ain't lying. We know we ain't lying. Because I know I wasn't giving my kids no options. You going to the hall. Oh, you going, and you better answer this question. When he called number 3, you better raise your hand. And if my kids didn't raise their hand, I'm there pitching. Raise your hand. You know that. And they in there doing this. I want to slap them in the back of the head so bad. Boy, you hear them. I said when they get to number 3, your hand should be way up there. They didn't want to be involved because they didn't even believe it anyway. See what I'm saying? But that's my fault. I had to apologize to my children because of that. Parents, we owe our children apologies for so many different things. And I feel like the way to get them to open up to us so that they can understand us and we can better understand them, we need to apologize to them. And I'm going to leave us with a dream oracle. And I'm out of here. But we need to learn how to apologize to our children because we ain't always right, even when we think we are. We take their ability to be able to have choices and how they want to perceive the higher power away from them. And we got to give them an opportunity to at least express what is your concept of life, of creation. What is your concept of it? Instead of trying to force them to believe what we want them to believe. So here it says be present, gift. And I feel like what this is saying is that we have to sometimes come out of this mindset that we always know what's best. And a lot of times we do. But we got to remember, we ain't always going to be around, and our kids got to grow up. And they have to learn how to have thinking abilities on their own. They have to learn how to acquire wisdom as well, like we did. No, we don't want them to go through the same things that we had to go through. But the thing to do different is not to do a lot of the things that our parents or grandparents or whoever raised us did to us. We got to be present with them because those are gifts to us. These are our future leaders. And we want them to have the right mindset, the right type of enlightenment. We want them to have the right type of wisdom. So we have to allow them to open up to that on their own and stop trying to force it on them and make them, be a certain type of way. Make them think this way. Make them believe this. Make them believe that. Give them an opportunity to have a safe space to open up their throat chakras and their heart chakras and be honest with us about how they truly feel. Because a lot of y'all will be surprised to know that some of y'all believers, y'all children may be atheists, but they may not be expressing that to y'all because they may be afraid. Give them that opportunity to explain why they may believe the way you want them to or not. But if they feel like they can't open up and talk to you, guess what? They're going to grow up and they're going to be living a life. They're going to be miserable as heck in, or they're going to go astray. You don't want them to do neither one. You want them to genuinely have whatever concept of God is going to help them grow, help them be the citizen and the person, their best self that you want them to be and that they want to be for themselves. So that's all I came here to say, that this God concept is not natural to us. It was taught to us. Natural concepts would be, yes, you're going to wonder how all of this stuff got here. But when you look at nature, you start to study it in a way, more of a scientifical way, than more so than some mystery gadget in the sky with a wand in his hand. You understand what I'm saying? That don't talk, that don't show his face, that don't do nothing, just sit there. These children want to know why this God ain't communicating with them like it's communicating with everybody else. So I just feel like we got to give our children an opportunity to express what their concepts of a higher power is to them. And then we can share our perspective with them and just let them grow into it or open up to it on their own. So anyway, that's all I came to say. I didn't mean to be here this long. Anyway, y'all enjoy the rest of y'all week, and see y'all later. She out. Peace.